Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. If you have your own song you'd like to submit for special selections, you can find a link to do so in the description below. Today's comes at us from Howard. It says this is a local band in North Carolina. I'm trying to learn this song on 6-string Celaris, a Manifold in parallel guitar playthrough. Alright, so let's dive into this. Let's see what Celaris is bringing to the table today. Ooh, I'm loving the hi-hat, close hi-hat idea. Really clean multi-finger tapping going on. Oh, that chord. Really beautiful jazzy ideas underneath the tapping. Okay. We're moving between these two chords, playing around with them a little bit. Interesting accenting ideas. Opening up the kit a little bit with those tight double bass kicks and the open cymbal. Really beautiful suspended ideas going on. Yeah, pushing against the downbeats. Those hi-hat rolls get me every time. I like the tone shift on our right guitar. I like the mix here with the combination of grounded but ethereal. Slight dynamics on the cymbal work. Yes. Definitely a direction this section needed to go in. Yeah, giving the drums a moment to shine. Going to a halftime feel from where we were at. Really interesting production in that last section where we had two guitars left and one right. Yes. Yes. Really fun time feel right there. Really fun time feel. I'm curious if that last section was also in 4/4 like the rest of the track. I believe was, and it was just pushing against it with an odd time signature because it feels so far outside the realm of 4/4, but I mean that's kind of the thing with some of this more technical playing is using polymeter to make it feel like we've pushed out a 4/4 but still staying within it. So yeah, I'm a little curious about that. If anybody has some insight into that, otherwise I'm just gonna go listen to it myself and focus primarily on time signature and figure out what's going on there. But yeah, that was a nice way to end that. There's a few things I want to talk about here. First is going to be this this conjoining of ideas. There are very fluid, suspended, ethereal vibes in several of these sections that almost always get paired with a very genty, staccato kind of rhythmic thing. And it's really interesting to hear this combination. You know, usually when we're listening to a band that's going to utilize that staccato, that rhythmic choppiness, um, not even just staccato, it is the syncopated staccato of playing against the beat itself with these really short, sharp notes that we typically, is very popular in gent music. Um, Typically the whole band's going to be in on that because it has two factors. One is the aggression, it's that really sharp, quick, pointed attack. And then the other half is going to be the lopsidedness of it, which is its rhythmic component against the beat itself, which is typically held somewhere in the band, usually in the drum somewhere. Here we had the snare and occasionally the bass laying it down in most of the sections. But it's usually the whole band coming together to fully accentuate this style. And here we pair it with the opposite to great effect at several moments, where we have this really sharp staccato syncopated rhythm and then this beautiful ethereal suspended notes, the exact opposite. Instead of short notes we have long held out notes. Instead of a very aggressive attack with no release, we have a soft attack with a ton of decay on it. Instead of picking a single note and just driving it home rhythmically, there is melody. It is pretty much the exact opposite as far as composition writing goes. And I would never think to pair the two this way. Typically, when I think of these sort of rhythmically sharp sections, I'm going to include another rhythmically sharp melody on top of it. Maybe not necessarily tying into its rhythmic component, but going along with the aggression that's present there to compound it and not extrapolate, and exponentially utilize that feeling that we're getting from the foundational work and to include that in our primary melody, just to really drive home that feeling. This actually, it works really well, and I wouldn't expect it to, because the two sounds are so different that they don't really work together, and I think that's part of the what makes it work. And it's not that they don't work together, like they sonically clash or anything like that. It's more of they're going for two very different ideas, as I just explained. They're built on pretty much opposite techniques. So you can't really utilize one's ideas to empower the other. They really have to be strong on their own, which I'm going to get into later, because I did say that typically this worked very well. Um, but in the moments when it does work well, it's because we have really strong melodic writing with really interesting syncopated writing, and they work to create this dual, like yin and yang kind of thing going on. That just sounds really neat. It's very fresh to my ears, if nothing else. And I really appreciate the duality in the writing there. Um, and we even saw this later on towards the end of the track when we introduced a third line to what was going on. We had our left guitar doing a syncopated idea, our right guitar doing a lead melody, and then we had a second left guitar come in to harmonize with our lead melody while we still had that rhythmic staccato thing going on underneath it all. And it's moments like that just really work. I would love to hear more stuff like that. I don't know what kind of limitations the band has. Um, yeah, there's no information here about uh, personnel. Oh, dang, the link to their website doesn't even work. Wait, maybe that was just... Okay, yeah, that was just a bad link. There are 5 people in this band, which is good, because I actually had a little bit of a thought in the back that maybe the drums were programmed. Not that it's a bad thing, but you guys know how I am about music in play. So they do have a bassist. I didn't hear any bass at all. And that's something I was going to comment on. And they do have a drummer. Very cool. And they do have a vocalist. Now I'm curious. I kind of assumed they were an instrumental band, which is why I also thought that the drums were programmed, because they were exceptionally clean, and we're going to get to that in a second. But because there's no vocals, and because the drums were very perfect, that I thought maybe they were programmed, and the fact that I didn't really hear a bass in any of the track, I really thought it was a two-person team that was doing something like an Animals as Leaders kind of thing, pure instrumental. They didn't have a drummer, so they programmed the drums, and then they just do all the guitar work. That's not how it is. So now I need to... Oh, nice, they have an Apple page. I'm probably going to check this album out. And do they have an album? They do. Okay, so they do have an instrumental edition as well. And I wonder if this came off of that, which is... Yeah, this is their debut, not debut, their title opening track. Oh, they have a single up for this year too. Um, yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this on my own. I'm really hoping that, being it's the intro to the album, there's no vocals on it. But I did notice the drums pushed down in the mix as well, so I wonder if this is a specific version of the song that's not the studio version, because it is the guitar playthrough of it. Which, like I said, I'm gonna be just a hair bit disappointed if I didn't get a studio version, which is fine. Somebody, specially selected this track. They wanted me to talk specifically about this version, I'm going to assume. So I'm not upset about it that way. But, first impressions, I like to get the original intent on my first listen. Anyways, I am way off topic. Let's get back to this. We talked about the duality in this. Um, Drumming. We got to talk about this. Like I said, I thought they were even programmed at one point in time. They are gorgeous. There are several sections where the cymbals get utilized as a textural and atmospheric element, where it's not a rhythmic component of the song. We just get these really nice cymbal rolls. And I'm primarily talking about closed hi-hat and very subtle ride ideas. Because if you roll on a crash cymbal or a china, you're getting a huge sound. I'm talking about the really like pretty sparkles, if you will. Just these little beautiful moments with these clean, precise cymbal rolls. It is just phenomenal, and it's always the placement of them that is. It's like it's perfectly picked. The drummer just has such a knack for saying, you know what, this moment needs some 16th notes, not from a bass, not from a bass drum, not from my snare, from a closed hi hat. So good. Um, and then we also have all the polyrhythmic stuff going on, where the snare or bass, or sometimes both of them, snare and bass kick, will be laying down the time signature. They'll be doing like every other beat, and the cymbal work will be in line with what the guitar is doing with its rhythmic syncopated ideas. And just that stuff's always going to blow me away because I can't do that. I don't know how drummers do it, man. Like, I can drum out simple ideas as long as everything's in sync with each other. Like, if I got quarter notes and eighth notes and like every other beat, and everything is lining up with each other, I can probably put together a drum idea based off of that. Um, but I mean, just even like padding out two different time signatures on my hands without involving my feet is not something my brain is really good at. I'm sure it's a skill you can practice, but it still blows my mind that people do this. And just to hear it while also putting in these embellishing ideas within these polyrhythmic lines and doing it with this level of precision and accuracy, it is just the drummer is good. To put it, to undersell it a little bit. I mean, it was one of the first things I gushed about during the song was the hi-hat roll. Like 30 seconds in, I'm falling down already. My knees are weakening listening to it. Drums are so good here. Um, I want to comment on the bass, but again, I didn't hear it. I don't know if that was because of the production for this specific version, but it wasn't there. And like I said, I even kind of assumed that this was like an Animals as Leaders thing with two guitarists, where maybe they're down tuning one of their strings or something like that to get the lower end element out of it without needing a bassist. So, maybe it's just my ears, maybe it was the mix. I don't know. This is like I said, I'm gonna have to listen to the studio version and see what I think of that. I'm not gonna hold um, any opinions about the bass work yet. I'm going to assume if the guitarists are as good as they are and the drummers as good as they are, then the bassist is going to be bringing it to the table as well. They got some skills to show, and I'll listen to follow me on Twitter, okay? When I listen to albums, I sometimes live tweet while I'm listening to them, and maybe I'll do that for this one. Make sure I get those tweets out and put my thoughts out about this. It's called In Hiding from Celaris. Same thing with the vocalist. I don't know if this track has vocals, but I don't have anything to add on them right now regarding that. So, with the instruments out of the way, I want to talk about one problem I had. And it's not really a problem per se, it's more of an invitation, a challenge, an invitation to to improve, possibly. Unless, Celaris, if you're watching this, if you just really enjoy what you're doing, as I tell every band, I'm just some dude on the internet. What I'm about to say is what I would do in your situation if I had this song as a bassist. These are ideas that popped up into my head while I was listening to it. Um, so the first ethereal section felt like it went on just a hair bit too long for me, and I think it's because unlike the sections that came before it and after it, even the ethereal sections that came after it, it's sort of meandered. I don't feel like it really knew what to do or where to go. I thought it was a fantastic decision to introduce some contrast. Prior to this, we had a lot of tapping. We had the tapping with the suspended notes, and then we had the tapping with the melodic line from the other guitarist. There was a lot going on. We had counterpoint. The drums were doing their things. Like, it was a fantastic introduction to the skill of the band, the raw musicianship. So backing it off a little bit and going with primarily suspended tones and a single note played rhythmically underneath it is a fantastic way to bring the intensity down a little bit so we can bring it back up later. But the section as a whole just needed something else. And when you guys introduced the harmony on top of it for like the last 20 seconds of the section, I really wanted more of that. I wish you could have heard more of that. Even just some counterpoint, harmony, something, just another layer, I think, is what was needed there. It almost felt like the ethereal line was also a foundational role alongside the rhythmic stuff that the left guitar was doing, and it was just missing something to be in the spotlight at that moment. Now, the ethereal line did end up evolving into a stronger melody, and then we put the harmony on top of it, and it ended much stronger than it started, but it took, personally, I think, a little too long to get to that point. Like I said, it felt like it was meandering a little bit where the rest of the song doesn't. And that's not something that you can't do in a track. You can't, I mean, you can certainly have a section of a song just sort of exist and be, especially if you have a thematic purpose for it, if you're trying to tell a story through your music. But I didn't get any of that. So it just felt like a section that you didn't necessarily know what you wanted to do with. And I hope that I don't want to be too mean saying that. Every other aspect of the track, including the other ethereal sections, felt like it had momentum and direction. It felt like it had a plan. This one section just didn't. And I don't know if that's because it was an early part of the writing. You didn't know what to do with it. You finished the rest of the track and you still didn't have an idea. So you're like, oh, just leave it. I've done that myself, where you just get tired of working on something and it's good enough, right? No piece of music, no art is ever perfect. There's always going to be things that could be improved and could be worked on. And at some point, as any artist will tell you, you just have to stop the project somewhere. You have to say, okay, that's fine. I'm going to have to be okay with the state that it's in. And maybe that's just what happened here. Maybe I listened to every other track on the album and I don't hear any other sections like this. It was just this one part. But, this introduction to you, like I said, that was just a small little criticism there. It's just another layer, I think, would have helped clean that up. And at the time, I was like, oh, maybe they're just a two guitar band. That's all they're going to do. But you introduced the harmony on it later. And later on in the track, in the final ethereal section, you also included three guitar lines, despite only having two guitars. So you don't have a problem with double tracking a single guitarist. So yeah, I think just having one more layer there would have been a huge boon for that section. Otherwise, though, I think everything else in this track is just really well done. I'm blown away. I'm going to have to check out more of this. I absolutely love the textures and atmospheres that you guys are crafting here, and all the skill that's put on display. I'm really hoping when I dive into the studio version to hear some vocals and bass. Although I'm going to keep my expectations where they're at. If I hear vocals and bass, that's fine. It's also possible, I suppose. I wish I had time to just like dive into some research here. But I suppose there's also the case where it could be that the bassist and vocalist signed on after doing In Hiding, and maybe they're part of this new single that came out this year, Out of Phase. So, well, no, because it's called in it. Yeah, there's vocals on the. All right, I'm gonna stop talking, stop hypothesizing about stuff. This is the end of the video. These are my thoughts on Celaris's A Manifold in Parallel, the guitar playthrough of it. This is where you guys come and hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this or not, anything that stood out to you, anything you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on. Drop those comments down there. Above that, if you could, head into the description box, and there you'll find a link to Linktree, which takes you to this menu right here. Has links for everything related to the channel. You can help support the channel. You can join the communities that surround the channel, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to be continuing on with this week's theme as well as checking out a special selection. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.